Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. So I wanted to do something a little bit different today because I feel like there is a lot of information about how an English degree is used in terms of your career, the workplace environment, etc. But I haven't seen a whole lot of information about how an English degree affects your personal day-to-day life, the way you think about things, your interactions, your reading life. So today I just wanted to break down some of my thoughts on my personal experience having an English degree, what getting an English degree was like, how I use it, and how it affects my reading life. So without further ado, let's get into the video. So in December of 2020, I completed my BA in English with a concentration in creative writing. And I personally didn't declare my major until I got to my second school, which I transferred to for my junior year of college. And at that point, I declared my English major and continued on that path. But throughout my experience at community college for the 2 years that I was there, I did quite a lot of English-related classes, and that helped inform my decision on what I wanted to major in and what I wanted to ultimately get my degree in. I really loved my college experience. I felt like I got a lot out of it in the classes specific to my major and also in some of the classes that were more broadly general education classes and such. My English-specific classes were very much focused on discussion, analysis of literature, learning how to write and form arguments about literature, making connections between the book we were reading and other texts, making connections to real life and history, making connections to social issues, commentary on social issues, etc. All of those things were a very big part of my English classes that I took in college. I personally didn't expect the level of social commentary and discussion of social issues to be present in my English classes. I took a sociology course in college as well and a psychology course, and those definitely informed my understanding of literature. But within my actual English classes, we talked so much about the political issues and the social issues that were being discussed. But even if those topics were not central to the plot or the novel at large, we still used them as context for our reading. In my classes, we read so much. Of course, we read a lot of novels, we read a lot of background text and information, we read poetry, short stories, etc. And not only did we read those, but we had such a huge focus on close reading, reading things line by line, breaking down a paragraph and what is being said in that paragraph, going beyond what the actual wording is and the diction, and trying to find more information in that passage than what is actually on the page, if that makes sense. There was also a focus on drawing connections between different sections of the novel or the work, drawing connections between the life of the author and the novel, drawing connections between the novel and other texts of the time period, etc. And of course, there were quite a lot of papers. Basically, we took all of the things we were learning in class, from analyzing a work to close reading to drawing connections, all of those things that we were practicing in discussion, we would use those tools and put them into a paper format to show that we were able to draw those connections on our own, but also to demonstrate that we could collect that information and create a cohesive argument and prove our points about whatever literary work we were writing about. So that was my general experience with my English degree. Of course, there's always going to be things that are different with different schools and different programs and stuff, but I would say in general, those are the key things that you're going to be doing in order to learn the material. Your material is going to change vastly based on what classes you take and what teachers you have and what school you go to, of course, but I would say that those concepts are the general way that a lot of English degrees and English classes are taught. So say you've completed all of your classes, you have all of your knowledge, you've gotten the piece of paper that says that you have a degree. Now, how do you use it? And I want to stress that this is not about the actual workplace environment because, as I said, there are so many videos and there is so much information about the different ways that you can use an English degree in the workplace, how you can make money with that, etc. That's not what I want to discuss because I feel like that is the focus of getting a college degree, right? That's the focus. You want to focus on how you're going to make money with the degree because you've spent all of this time and all of this money likely to get this degree. So how is it going to benefit you monetarily and in your career? And those are very important things, but I think there's this other side of it where you are benefited in your interactions, in the way that you communicate, and all of these other things that is not talked about as much and is not recognized as an important part of getting an English degree. So one way that having an English degree benefits you is actually in your own way of thinking about things and analyzing situations. You've spent all this time analyzing literature, figuring out the connections between that and real life, drawing conclusions and themes, and trying to have a deeper understanding of the written word. So of course that translates into having a deeper understanding of the written word outside of school, but it also translates to having a deeper understanding and ability to analyze situations in real life. Critical thinking is just such a big part of English courses, and I think having those skills really benefits you in real life because you then have the ability to apply those critical thinking skills to real life situations. And I think this is said of college at large, but college is more a place to learn how to think than to learn what to think. So we're not going to college to gain a whole different belief system and be told exactly how we should be thinking about things. We go to college to learn the critical thinking skills, the analysis skills, and all of these other skills to put into practice and to learn how to examine situations, to think about things, etc. So to me, I just find that I personally use the skills that I gained from my English degree very, very much in my day-to-day understanding of people, of political situations, of social situations, of myself. And none of this is to say that if you don't have an English degree, you can't have those skills. There are so many different ways to learn skills of analysis and critical thinking. College in general, real life experience, work experience, interactions with people. There are so many ways to learn these things, and by no means am I saying that an English degree is the best way or the only way to learn these things. I'm just talking about it from my personal experience, and these are the things that I feel like I gained from my degree. So moving from how you're thinking to how you are communicating, it's great to be able to analyze things in your head and break things down, but what's even better is having the ability to take all of that information that you have stored in your brain and things that you have connected and thought about and put it into a concise written format. And to me, that's where English classes shine even more, because you can have, as I said, all of those critical thinking skills before you start your English degree, but you might not know how to take all of that and create a written concept and format that is going to prove your point. And I think that's where all of the time spent in writing and outlining and all the things that we hate when we're actually in class, that really helps to build the ability to take the things you have in your head and actually put them down. Putting in the work in college in terms of brainstorming, outlining, word mapping, all these different things that I did to help create and inspire ideas and collect ideas really helped me to prove a point, be convincing, create an argument in a concise way. In our day-to-day lives, maybe we don't do as much writing in a academic sense as we did in college. Likely we don't. But we do use all of those skills in a verbal format almost on a daily basis. In our general day-to-day verbal interactions, we're probably trying to prove a point, to explain something, to convince, all these things that we learned how to do in college. Even in presentations as well in college, we learned how to create an argument and present it verbally. In a more concrete sense, an English degree also helps you with your grammar, your spelling, your diction, all of these less fun but arguably just as important things. Those are all things that you learn from an English degree as well. Having a great vocabulary helps you articulate what you actually mean. It also gives you the ability to more accurately and precisely describe things that are maybe difficult to discuss. And with all of your paper writing and editing of your papers, editing of classmates' papers, etc., you're gaining the understanding of how to proofread, how to find errors of spelling, grammar, punctuation, etc., how to improve a sentence that is technically correct but could sound a lot better. And this is where my friends are very grateful, because I use those skills to help my friends edit their papers, to help edit a friend's website that they're making, their social media posts, all of those things. A lot of these things sound very abstract, but that is also something that having an English degree teaches you, because things like theme are not something that you can touch and feel and understand in a concrete way. You have to think about these things in the abstract. And when I talk about what you gain from an English degree, it is often very abstract. It's how you think, it's how you analyze, a lot of it is in your head. But if we're already not looking at this from a concrete monetary or career lens, it makes sense that what we're left with is kind of abstract. If you want to take all of those critical thinking and analysis things out of your college experience at large or out of your English degree, you will. You just have to prioritize flexing those mental muscles. All right, since this is a booktube channel, let's talk about how having an English degree affects my life as a reader. So I was definitely a reader before I started my English degree, but getting into my actual English courses in my junior and senior years, that's when my actual desire to read skyrocketed. I had taken quite a long break from reading in the first 2 years of my college life, and when I actually declared my major, that's when I began reading so much more, and I was so much more passionate about the books I was reading. A big part of your English classes will be annotating. The professor will often ask you to write in your books, to mark down passages that you think are important. This will help you in your paper writing so that you can draw those conclusions later. It'll make sure that you can actually find the quotes that you're looking for, and even if you're not going to use those quotes in your final paper, you'll be able to understand things better if you mark down major themes, major scenes, things that you think are going to be important later. That's where annotating comes in. So I do that now all the time in my own books. Even though I don't have to write a paper, no one's asking me to annotate a book, there's no reason to other than my own desire to make connections and to remember certain passages. Sometimes I just mark down passages that I think are nice. Sometimes I write a lot in my books about themes and my analysis of them, etc. There's a whole range of ways that I will annotate books for my own personal enjoyment, but all of that stems from the experience of annotating a book for an academic reason. I've also found quite a few genres of interest through my degree. If I hadn't taken my English courses, I wouldn't have found that I like a lot of poetry. I wouldn't have found that short stories and short story collections are really up there in my favorite genres list. I wouldn't have found Shirley Jackson, I wouldn't have found Flannery O'Connor, and I wouldn't have such a deep appreciation for them, their history, their stories, etc. As I was saying, analysis, critical thought, drawing conclusions, finding themes, etc. All of those things are things I never did before I had my English degree. At this point, it's so ingrained in me from all of my classes to look at literature this way that it feels natural and it feels like not a lot of work to just go through a book and find those things. They honestly jump out at me a lot of the time. I don't have to search for themes or search for connections as I did when I first started my English courses. My English degree also gave me a better vocabulary of terms to speak about literature, to understand literature, and I use that when I'm reading, and I also use that when I'm reviewing books. My experience with my English classes also made me focus a lot more on quality of writing over enjoyment of the story. Not always. I still definitely read for just enjoyment of the story without caring as much about the writing, but even when that happens, say I'm reading a thriller that's not super literary or anything like that, I'm looking for that thrill. I'm not looking for a literary work, but it still comes up. I still feel like, oh, this could be improved if this sentence was structured differently, or the writing overall is X or Y and it should be Z. Like, I definitely still bring that into my reading experience, but I find now I'm less like, oh, this is such a fascinating story, and more like, how is the writing? what does the writing feel like? What's the ambiance? What's the pacing? What's the diction like? What is the author trying to convey in their writing style? Because we also kind of learn with our English courses that everything in a book has meaning. The way that the book is written can mean something more than just how it's written. And with my usage of my English degree in my reading life comes my usage of my English degree in my content creation life. Often I feel like I approach book reviews in the way that I would approach a paper about a book. Sometimes I write these really, really long reviews that are very in-depth and analyze things to a level that just feels like I'm writing another paper, and I enjoy those things. So I bring those skills to my book reviews. I bring them to my video content because obviously I'm using my verbal communication skills to prove a point to you, and hopefully I'm effectively proving my point. There's one downside that I have noticed so far in my post-graduation life in terms of my reading, and that is the feeling that I need to participate in reading of the canon. So basically canonical literature is all of those classics that everyone has to read in school. And I feel like because I have this higher education, I should enjoy classics more. I should be reading them more. I should have a higher level of reading than the average person does. And I battle with myself on this because sure, there are a lot of pieces of classic literature that I have enjoyed and that I have gotten a lot out of, but it is kind of hard for me to enjoy classics in the same way that I did in an academic setting. Because I feel like in an academic setting, you have discussion possibilities and you have other resources and you're doing it for a purpose. At this point, when I'm reading, I'm usually reading for enjoyment. And yes, I am looking at it critically and I'm analyzing and I'm thinking about how I can use this in a book review, but it's mostly for enjoyment's sake. So if I'm not enjoying a book, I probably don't want to continue reading it. And that's the difference between pleasure reading and school reading, because when you're reading for something for school, you might like parts of it and might not like other parts of it, but you still have to read it. And at the end of the day, you might have a really, really good solid paper out of that book that's a classic, that there's a lot of information to and things to talk about, but you don't really love the book. And I think at this point in my reading life, I'm just not enjoying of those kind of books, and I feel like as someone who has an English degree, I should be enjoying of those books. So that's really the main downside that I see currently, being almost 2 years removed from my graduation. So to wrap this video up, I just want to say that I'm, again, in no way saying that you have to have an English degree to be able to be a great reader, to analyze books, to be a book content creator, any of that. I just happened to go that route, and I noticed that having those skills really helps me in my day-to-day life and in the way that I process information and my reading life. Again, that's not to say that you can't do all of those things without a degree. There's lots of people who have demonstrated that, but I'm also glad that there are other ways that I use my degree than in a career sense. I'm really happy to see that the time, energy, and money that I put into my education actually benefits me on a day-to-day basis. So those are just my general thoughts on my experience with an English degree. If you're somebody who is thinking about getting an English degree or has just started your English courses and are on an English major track, I hope that this video was helpful and you got some more information into kind of how it feels to have an English degree. If you're somebody who's finishing up your degree or has had it for a while, please let me know if you feel similarly to any of these things, and if you feel like there are more ways that you use your degree in a day-to-day basis other than the workplace. If so, please leave a comment, because I would love to hear your experiences having an English degree and how you feel like it's benefited you or caused problems in your day-to-day life, like the problem of being the person that everyone goes to for their editing needs. But anyway, if you enjoyed this video, feel free to like and subscribe, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!